Hi, I'm DJ Kaiser, the author of Practical Pronunciation, Pronunciation Strategies in Practice. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and what led to this textbook. So, as an undergraduate, I double majored in linguistics and Spanish. And a really important year was my sophomore year when I did a study abroad at the University of Barcelona. I had the opportunity to take a 1 year course in English phonetics and phonology with Dr. Brian Mott. And it was a really difficult course, but I learned so much about the field of phonetics and phonology and teaching pronunciation. And in that same year, I took a course in Spanish linguistics with Dr. Ernesto Caratala and was also learning about phonetics and phonology in Spanish. When I came back to the United States, to the University of Illinois, I also went on and did my master's in TESOL, where I got to study with Dr. Wayne B. Dickerson, and he had a full course on teaching pronunciation. And then I got to work with him and teach full courses in English pronunciation. And I did that for 2 full years and got to teach workshops in pronunciation with smaller groups. So I had these great experiences at the University of Illinois after my experiences in Barcelona. And then after that, I went back to the University of Barcelona as a visiting professor, where I started to develop my own materials. That was the beginning of writing Practical Pronunciation. And then in 2001, I got a job at Washington University in St. Louis, where I was hired to teach advanced pronunciation. And I taught an advanced pronunciation 1, an advanced pronunciation 2 class, and a course in oral presentation skills, working with international teaching assistants, business professionals, postdoctoral researchers. A lot of them were in the biomedical sciences. So I was working with a lot of really advanced learners of English. And I was integrating pronunciation into so many of the courses that I was teaching. And by 2002, I had a full manuscript of Practical Pronunciation and started to teach this as a core text. Then in 2011, I moved to Webster University, and I've been at Webster University since then. I'm now a professor and the director of our TESOL program. And I've used Practical Pronunciation as the main text for a course on teaching pronunciation. So I've used Practical Pronunciation as a main text for teaching learners pronunciation and working with English teachers. And I've also used this over the years as I've done shorter workshops and seminars. I've done full day seminars on teaching pronunciation and multi-day seminars. And I'm just very excited to have this now finally in print. The audience for Practical Pronunciation is advanced learners of English. So if we're looking at the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, or the CEFR, this is going to be at the C1 level. So when I was writing this book, I was working with international teaching assistants, business professionals. I worked with law students. I worked with postdoctoral researchers, master's and doctoral students across all the different disciplines at a Research 1 institution. So that's the level of learners that I was writing this book for, and that's the level that you can expect in this book. Now, at the same time, the audience of this book can also be MA TESOL students, so in a teacher training program. So if you are being prepared to teach pronunciation, this book is also appropriate in that context. Practical pronunciation is divided into 12 lessons, which are organized into 3 different units. What I'm going to do is do a different section for each of the units in this video. This way I can talk about the content in each of those units and talk about some of the specifics in those different lessons. Unit 1 looks at sounds, word stress, and phrase rhythm. So we'll start off with an overview of consonant and vowel sounds. Now, vowel sounds in practical pronunciation are taught looking at modeled speaker utterances. So the vowels of North American English are taught and modeled through these modeled speaker utterances. So long E is taught with wee and short I with ick. So there's this whole system of these modeled speaker utterances that I've used for about 25 years, and students really find them fun, and I've seen them use it for self-correction. Another thing that's unique to practical pronunciation is the use of these different physicalizations. So when we're teaching the difference between long and short vowels, and it's really a difference between tense and lax vowels, we'll use something like hand squeezing. So we'll do where we'll use hand squeezing. So there's a number of these physical things that we'll do to work on different contrasts. And this will be done for both vowel sounds and consonant sounds. And you're going to find these physicalizations throughout the entire book. Then there are 4 word stress rules that are included in the book. Lesson 2 introduces the 4 word stress rules. And then lessons 3, 4, 5, and 6, each of those will go through one of those word stress rules in more depth. And then lesson 7 has a review of those. So what's unique about practical pronunciation is that these word stress rules have been informed by research from the Corpus of Contemporary American English, or COCA. So I spent months researching words from the Corpus of Contemporary American English and then looking up the pronunciation of these words and verifying how these are pronounced, and then seeing which of these rules are going to be better rules and are going to stress more rules and which ones have more exceptions. So that's something that's very unique to practical pronunciation. Then when we get to phrase rhythm in practical pronunciation is taught through 2 basic patterns. So I call this the numbered pattern, which is 1 and 2 and 3, and then the lettered pattern, A, B, C, D. And practical pronunciation looks at combining these 2. So we don't just have this one style or this other style, but we're actually combining these 2 different styles. And this is important because there are times where we get 2 stresses that are in a row. Just like I said there, we've got 2 stresses, 2 stresses. There's some books that will tell you that you always have to have a pause between these. They want you to say 2 stresses, 2 stresses, putting a pause between that. But that's not really the case. And then also the book will work on using an air pointer. So when we're working on stress, what we're going to do is we'll start out with this air pointer, and we'll see how this air pointer really helps. And then we'll work on taking that air pointer and we'll turn into something else in later lessons and in units 2 and 3 of the book. Unit 2 looks at the phrase, focus, syllable, and noun constructions. So this first one, it's what I call the phrase, focus, syllable. And different books will call this different things. So I've got a list here. It's also called phrase stress, focus stress, primary phrase stress. So I've chosen the term phrase, focus, syllable because it is a syllable that is being brought into focus. And I've got an example sentence here that I want to read for you. So the committee was undecided after discussions. So the committee was undecided after discussions. So the word undecided, the stress goes on decided, undecided. But what happens in this particular context with the sentence, we've shifted the stress onto the syllable un in this context. So this is PFS, is we're shifting that focus onto un because it's not been decided. And so practical pronunciation will take learners through how to make decisions about where that PFS goes to shift that focus. The other topic that's covered in Unit 2 is noun constructions. Now, many people are familiar with compound nouns. There's another category that's covered, which I call noun strings. So noun strings is going to be people's names, names of buildings, names of publications. So Lesson 6 is going to look at compound nouns and noun strings, and then complex noun constructions, where you're combining these, because you can have you can have noun strings that include compound nouns. And then you have to look at where stresses go, and then where does the PFS go on those. Also in Unit 2, you'll look at how we take our air pointer. So we look at using the air pointer and then putting the air pointer down and then starting to use gestures. So looking at the research on using beat gestures and how these beat gestures can help make our stresses easier for our listeners to hear. Unit 3 focuses on stress and intonation. There are 3 intonation patterns that practical pronunciation focuses on: final falling, final rising, and non-final rising. There are 2 lessons that focus on intonation on questions. This is because PFS placement and intonation on questions can really change meaning, and it's a lot more complex, especially for learners to understand. So I'm going to read 3 examples so you can see how this can change things. You have a PhD. You have a PhD. You have a PhD. So as you see there, we have the exact same words and the exact same grammar, but the placement of the stress, the PFS, and the intonation changes the intention of the speaker. So advanced learners need to understand that, and then also need to be able to encode their language with that. There's also a lesson on non-final rising, which is used in lists, but it's also important to signal when a speaker is not done speaking yet. Finally, there is a lesson that focuses on paratone. So paratone is when we're essentially changing the key. And so when I said finally, I went to a higher tone, and what I'm doing is I'm marking a new paragraph, but I'm doing it with tone. This can also be done with parentheticals, which is when I'm trying to add some extra information. And so what I did right there is I said parentheticals, which is when I went to a lower tone. So we're using tone, and so this paratone, it's a more advanced feature of pronunciation, and one that you typically don't find in pronunciation textbooks. So Unit 3 of Practical Pronunciation is going to cover many topics you often don't find in many pronunciation textbooks. Practical Pronunciation also includes 210 audio files. So that is 276 minutes of audio content, which is more than 4.5 hours of audio content. Lessons 2 through 12 at the end include opportunities to work on specific consonant and vowel contrasts. So that will start with opportunities for ear training. So you'll be able to listen to differences between key sound contrasts that may be difficult for you to hear what is the difference there, and then opportunities to practice these. So hearing me say different words, and you have the opportunity to practice them. Now, what's important is so I've ordered these practices so that with consonants, you start with the target sounds at the beginning of the word, then the middle, and then at the end, and also having these in consonant clusters. So whenever this is possible, so it's not always the case that all these sounds will occur in all of these environments and always in consonant clusters. When it comes to vowel sounds, I've also been very careful to make sure that the vowel is included in all the different types of environments, going from where it's going to be easier to hear and easier to pronounce to where it's more difficult to hear and more difficult to pronounce. In addition to that, there are other audio files that will focus on word stress and on intonation, rhythm, so all the other features of pronunciation. In addition to that, with practice items, I've worked on integrating different skills. So earlier I talked about using the corpus of contemporary American English to research words for word stress rules. So I took that list of words for word stress rules. So after you go through and you learn about word stress rules, then I took that list of words and integrated those into the practice items for words and phrases and sentences that you read. So as you're practicing your consonants and vowels, along with the audio where you can repeat after me, you're also practicing the word stress with those word stress rules that you have learned. In addition to the audio files, there are 29 video files. About a decade ago, I did a series of YouTube videos that I recorded in the basement of the last house that I lived in, and people enjoyed those videos. Teachers were sharing those videos and showing them in their classes. So for this book, I did a whole new series of videos, and I shot them right here. So sitting right in this chair. And what I do is I'm demonstrating for teachers what you can model in the classroom, but it's also for learners so that after class, you can practice along with me, and these videos can also be used for self-study. So I hope that these videos are really going to be useful both for teachers and for learners for pronunciation study. In addition to the 12 lessons and the audio and video files, there are 7 appendixes, which go into greater detail and include additional content on pronunciation. So I wanted to go through those 7 appendixes to help you understand what some of that content is. So Appendix A is a mini lesson on strong prefixes. So these are prefixes that can receive a stress where both the prefix and the word that it attaches to both receive stresses. So let's take, for example, reassign and prehistoric. So these are examples of strong prefixes. So Appendix A lists 76 different strong prefixes. These come from research that I did in the corpus of contemporary American English, and I identified these strong prefixes, and there are tables that have the prefixes based on their frequency in the corpus of contemporary American English, and includes transcriptions of how they are pronounced, and then examples of them being used. And I chose examples that were more frequent in the corpus. Then Appendix B is a review of the 4 word stress rules. This appendix goes in a bit more detail with some of the word stress rules and also includes more exceptions to the word stress rules. Then Appendix C provides an analytic approach to predicting rhythm patterns, which are covered in Lesson 3 of the main text. Then Appendix D is a mini lesson on strong and weak verb particles. So many people may know these as multi-word verbs or verb plus particle. So some examples such as to look up or to look up to. So this mini lesson looks at how you can predict the rhythm, the stress, and then the phrase focus stress when you have these strong and weak verb particles. Then Appendix E covers noun units and compound adjectives and the stress on those. So Lesson 6 covers compound, it covers these noun constructions, compound nouns and noun strings, but it does not cover the compound adjectives. So you're getting a review of compound nouns and noun strings, but this appendix includes additional coverage of these compound adjectives. So when I say that this book, that Practical Pronunciation, uses a corpus-informed stress rule, or uses corpus-informed stress rules. Corpus-informed is a compound adjective, and stress rules is a compound noun. So right there we see an example of using a compound adjective in front of a compound noun. Then Appendix F is another mini lesson, and it's looking at pronouncing numbers and letters. So there are multiple activities for learners to practice all these cases where when you're talking to someone, maybe you're on the phone, maybe it's in person, and you need to give your phone number. You have to give an identification number. You have to give a credit card number over the phone. You're giving your address. So all these different cases where you're giving numbers, where you're spelling things, and you really have to be accurate. So there are a lot of activities that can be used, and these can be spread out throughout a pronunciation course. So it's a great way to supplement a course. Then finally, Appendix G covers digital tools for pronunciation learning. So it starts out looking at how you can use this, your mobile device, in different ways to help with your pronunciation practice. And then I look at particular websites that you can use, such as Youglish, YouTube, TED Talks, and the Corpus of Contemporary American English, which you've heard me talk about several times. So the lessons in Practical Pronunciation have these digital tool sidebars throughout, telling you ways to engage with digital tools, and sometimes it will tell you to refer to Appendix G, and then in Appendix G it goes into more detail into how to use these digital tools to promote use of these tools for practicing pronunciation. So this is just an added bonus on top of everything else that you get with Practical Pronunciation. I wanted to highlight a few other things about Practical Pronunciation. So the book starts with an introduction, and the introduction is going to explain some of the research-based decisions, how research has helped inform what is in Practical Pronunciation. So if you're using Practical Pronunciation in a TESOL program, if you are a pronunciation specialist, you're really going to want to take time to read the introduction, and this is going to be a very helpful part of the book. Then at the end of the book, there is a personal pronunciation goals chart, PPG chart, and this is used for learners to set their own goals and to track that progress. So it's really important for learners to set their own goals and to track that progress. And there's time at the end of each of the lessons for learners to set those goals, and then to reflect on their progress. Then there is a glossary at the end of the book, and there are definitions and explanations for more than 100 different terms that appear across the book. So this is really helpful when there are terms that maybe you're a little unfamiliar with, maybe it only comes up once or twice in the book, and you're looking for what that means. So you can quickly go to the glossary to see what that is. And then finally, there are 5 different tables and charts that I thought people might want to find these and be able to find them quickly. And so at the end of the book, there's a quick reference charts section. And so you will be able to find those 5 tables and charts very quickly. For more information on ordering a copy of Practical Pronunciation, Pronunciation Strategies and Practice, please visit the University of Michigan Press website. The link is also included in the video description. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for updates on new content related to practical pronunciation, pronunciation strategies and practice, and English pronunciation teaching more broadly. Please share this video with other English teachers. I'd appreciate your engagement. Like the video and leave a comment or question. Thanks so much.